just did a little bit of a photo shoot where we had to slick back our hair. It's all caked. Oh,
hello,
gosh.
I'm Chella Man, 18 years old, and I'm here with...
Oslo, I'm 19 years old.
Today we want to talk a bit about identifying not within the binaries of boy and girl. The term to address this is usually non-binary, genderqueer, or GNC, which stands for gender nonconforming.
There are a ton of different genders under the non-binary umbrella, but basically it means that you view yourself as not being in strictly either one or the other. You could be neither. You could have a little bit more male, a little bit more female, and you can use whatever words you're comfortable describing it as you wish.
Exactly. And sadly, in our world today, it operates in the binaries. Bathrooms are a huge problem. We have both struggled with figuring out what bathroom to go to. I know she's definitely had some bad confrontations in bathrooms.
And so have you, right?
Yes. I've had women come into the bathroom and then walk out and check the sign to see if they're in the right bathroom, which is really not necessary because we are all there to just do some business. I've grown up using the women's restroom. I'm starting to use more of just the male restroom. What I realized is that men usually just like go in and go out and they don't really look at you, rather than most of the time when I go into the women's restroom, I get stared at a lot, if not confronted. All my confrontations have been in the women's restroom.
Yeah, that's same for me. So I grew up using the women's restroom. I've always been comfortable using the women's restroom, but these past couple of years I've began to discover who I am more, and just naturally I am comfortable expressing in a really masculine way. In public, 100% of the time I am seen as male. In those times I've gone to use the women's restrooms and I've gotten some pretty negative reactions. It was definitely something to think about, and I had to discuss this with my GT, a gender therapist. We just both decided that at this point it's safer for me to use the men's restroom. If there's a gender neutral restroom, wow, that's great, but I don't really get a second look in the men's restroom.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about other GNC people just using the men's restroom as well.
Mm-hmm.
Another question, how did you feel about your identity before discovering the term non-binary and realizing what exactly that means?
For me, it was where I began to question. I presented very masculinely since third grade on, breaking the gender norms, but I began to actually question it about a year ago. Anything feminine would make me extremely uncomfortable, which now I realized was definitely some early onset dysphoria. But before I knew the term non-binary, I was just confused. I was just really confused. I felt as though I was not male, but I also felt as though I wasn't exclusively female. I sort of thought I was crazy. I didn't feel either, but I didn't have the words to express that. When I found non-binary, it was definitely a clicking moment.
I have a lot of the same experience, and I feel like a lot of people who end up identifying genderqueer go through the same thing, where they're just so confused growing up and they are told that they can either be a girl or they can be a boy. Being in the middle just for some reason is not an option. Out of all the 7 billion people in this world, we don't all fit into 2 boxes. Come on.
Humans are dynamic, and I don't think those boxes do really anything terribly beneficial.
Exactly. Which brings us into pronoun. When people ask me my pronoun, I might say one thing one day, and then I might say another the next day. And this piece of light is just shining right down.
I was just thinking about that. Here, maybe.
Okay.
That's better.
Anyway,
pronouns.
So one thing that I feel is super important is that people's pronouns do not equate to how they identify. If I say, yes, my pronouns are he, him, that doesn't mean I identify male.
It can, but it doesn't have to be.
That is true, thank you. If I say they, them, it doesn't mean that instantly I'm genderqueer. Someone feels comfortable with being referred to.
Like me right now, I know that I'm okay with she, her, but I don't know how okay and how not okay I am with he, him, and they, them. It's okay not to know. It's okay to experiment. It's okay to have friends who you can say, hey, could you use male pronouns today? You are allowed to change your mind.
And how exactly do you ask someone for their pronouns? In most cases, it's best if you ask, because it's actually a super polite thing to say. When I'm asked my pronouns, I'm instantly like, whoa, this person is very considerate and very educated on gender. Appreciate this person and appreciate being asked. So I would say never be afraid to ask. Just ask very politely and it should be fun.
I think it also normalizes the question, which is super important. If someone's asking me, I say, hey, I'm Oslo, I use blah, blah, blah. It doesn't have to be a huge discussion.
And now, ideally, we would love a world where there is no gender, no terms, no definitions, and everyone could just be you.
And not have to justify yourself using different vocabulary. People in the non-binary spectrum, some of them find being misgendered or placed within either binary to be really uncomfortable. Their dysphoria is triggered almost immediately. And so I think that some people in our community use this label so that we are not misgendered in the binary.
Exactly.
It's just a lot better to be recognized as something you're comfortable with.
But overall, I want to stress that anything is valid. I have had super femme presenting people come up to me and say that they were thinking about top surgery. They were scared to come out and say that to people. But that doesn't mean their outward appearance would ever change. They would still want to present femme and wear skirts or dresses, etc. But they just want and identify more with themselves with a flat chest. In order to identify non-binary, that doesn't mean you have to do anything. Doesn't mean you have to conform to certain pronouns, doesn't mean you have to change the way you dress, doesn't mean you need surgery. If you feel non-binary, it's as simple as that. You can be.
And the same if you feel in the binary. If you identify as a woman and you have a flat chest and a penis, that doesn't matter. You're a woman. Bodies don't have to coincide with the typical societal behaviors or expressions. Just do whatever you're comfortable with, express however you're comfortable with. It can be different and it can be a mix.
Exactly. Anything is valid. Just try to not let society stop you from truly understanding and believing who you are. In my opinion, the second you're born, you know, and then the only thing that's confusing is what people tell you to believe.
Okay, perfect.